Shining Force is a game I grew up on, and unlike most games from my childhood where I find next to no enjoyment in them, like Pokemon, Sonic, Mario, and RuneScape, Shining Force is one that I will return to and consistently play, have a good time, no matter how many times I play. Learning the combat order optimizes strategy, and abusing coding issues to make my advantage, like the power rings, stat checks, or intentionally handicapping myself in a permadeath challenge, there is a level of inconsistency between each playthrough that still enables speedrunners to still break old records. There are objectively good characters in the game, like Tao, Pele, Domingo, but the experience point spreads seem to change each game, making some characters more reliable on some playthroughs and then falling off in others, a major example being Mei's defense boosts when leveling up. Each new game is a mixed bag, where you have no idea which characters will become massively overpowered, which continues to make this game feel fresh every time I play because old strategies might no longer work, requiring people to think on their feet. A lot of people don't like RNG's effect on their game, so there's a method of getting around bad stat rolls in Shining Forth, but it comes at a massive price. Hours and hours of grinding, as it should. Every time I've played the game and grinding out character levels, the game becomes more and more the same. Each character slowly becomes the same, as power levels the playing field, making up for characters' weaknesses, hiding the unique advantages of each, which is why I'm not a fan of overleveling in any game, since it takes away strategy. However, players do want to optimize their playthroughs, which is why promotion levels matter. The later you promote a character, the bigger their level ups will be afterwards, however that caps at level 20. The drawback to grinding levels is, unpromoted characters cannot use powerful weapons, in addition to gaining less XP, which makes grinding out these extra levels incredibly time-consuming. I have a save file where I leveled up every character to level 20, promoted, then got them to level 20 again. Then I have another save file where I promoted all the characters at level 10, then got them to level 20. I did this in an attempt to show everybody how trivial the difference in power was between the characters that I spent approximately 60 hours grinding, having a minor edge over the characters that require no grinding. The moment you promote a character, their stats drop by nearly 30%, which has made some people question whether they should promote their characters at all. I have yet to do a full playthrough with unpromoted characters, but I have a feeling the difference in power and in access to the strongest of magic and weapons will make it the most difficult playthrough yet, even more difficult than a permadeath playthrough, I imagine. After a character receives their promotion, they will gain massive amounts of XP from each kill, far more than they did beforehand, and gain massive stat boosts upon those level ups, whereas unpromoted characters gain minuscule stat boosts, if any, each time. There is a strong incentive to get characters to level 10 and promote them immediately, however the game gets incredibly tough towards the end and you may take advantage of delayed gratification, since after all, if you get your unpromoted character to level 20 first before promotion, then they gain even larger stat growth than if you didn't wait that long. The question is, holding off on promoting worth it? The best way to evaluate this would be to play through the game 11 times, promoting the whole cast at each level between 10 and 20, comparing the statistics to see if, for example, level 15 gives you the best growth for time invested. I do not have 1,000 hours to do that, however, so I'm just going on level 10 and level 20 promotions, the furthest of each end, because I sincerely doubt the difference will be worth the endless hours getting characters past level 10. Like I said before, I spent around 60 hours in the playthrough maxing out each character's stat, then I spent less than 20 hours in the playthrough where I promoted them all at level 10. Before delving into stats, it's important to know exactly what the difference helps against and to understand if grinding is actually worth anything in the game. Chimeras and Blue Dragons. These two monsters have some of the highest stats in the entire game, and in the final 5 battles of the game, they are in the first 3. Then the fourth has 2 Blue Dragons, but the final 2 battles of this game are the easiest and were absolutely no sweat in my permadeath challenge even. Battling the Chimeras and Blue Dragons, however, they have lots of health, defense, stupid high evasion, and deal massive amounts of damage. In addition to spell attacks, a single one of these is more frightening than any other boss in the game, other than General Elliot. Other monsters at this point in the game can pretty much be two-shot by any spellcaster or attacker. As the difficulty scaling in this game is really well made, the Chimeras and Blue Dragons are the only exceptions that can stall playthroughs. Other than these two beasts, there's really no reason to level grind, as all other party members outside the healers will consistently be powerful enough to be useful on the team, regardless of the enemy. Now before we get into the stats, there's 3 things you need to know first. The first of which is about the equipment. I unequipped all my characters, which will make their attack stats look preposterously low outside of Blue Adam and Xylo. The second thing is, I did the majority of level grinding during the Kane and Chaos boss battles, and because I still wanted to finish playing the game with fully maxed out characters, I played to the final chapter, so the characters that are fully maxed out They are upwards of level 30 in some cases. It's believable that the additional level boost could skew the results slightly, and yes, it will, but by an incredibly small margin, and let me explain why. After a promoted character reaches level 20, they can still level up and gain stats, but there is a very small chance that they will gain any new stats, and when they do, it's 9 times out of 10 only 1 additional point. So if you'd like to take it with a grain of salt, consider their total accumulated stats like 5 points lower or something. I will still be using the information I have, however I did sync all the stat boosting items into max because I was curious what the most powerful max you could possibly get in game is. I did do a max solo run where I got him to level 50, but that would be a topic for another video. Now without any more delays, let's look at our characters all side by side. Waiting to promote until level 20 clearly has its benefits for a few characters like Arthur, Henri, and Kokichi. However, I want to articulate a point where I believe it is dumb to do so, using Pele, Torsu, and Balbroy as examples. Balbroy would most negatively be impacted by the delayed promotion, the most as you've seen the difference between promotion levels yielded me less than 20 total stat points, so not only is the potential minuscule, it will also hurt his early and mid game more drastically than the stat bonus would benefit you in the late game. Pele does not have to worry about this since at the time he joins, he is the most powerful member of the team for the next 3 chapters of the game at least. Even at the very end of the game, he's stronger than the majority of characters. So he's a character who you could hold off on getting to level 20 without it being a burden to your team. However, he has the smallest growth of every single character between promotions in game, making his handicap essentially meaningless when he could be helping out against Kane and Michaela more. Balbroy has the same issue, being in the top 3 characters with the least growth depending on what level you promote him. However, he absolutely needs to be promoted immediately because he and his wife are so laughably weak early on that without the longsword, their only purpose is to carry the power ring down to the enemy mage in the quarry fight, abuse it, and then do the same against the Silver Knight in the laser eye battle. Balbroy and Eamon are so weak that they still only deal chip damage up until they get the broadsword in chapter 5, then they become usable in combat. Not only that, Balbroy and Eamon are incredibly effective against Michaela because only one melee character can fight her at once thanks to her creepy throne. The bird warriors can just hover beside the witch and attack for extra damage each turn you otherwise wouldn't get. Holding off to promote them would make them unable to play this role and make the fight far more difficult. Not to mention, they'd forego the power spike in the Kane battle. You'd want Eamon and Balbroy both to be viable fighters by this point in the game, and waiting any amount of time would make them fall off more than they would gain and backloaded stats. While Torsu also gaining abysmal growth, can be pointed to the fact that he's level 15-16 when you get him, though Aleph still gets a massive stat growth even with her starting level as well, which makes it somewhat unjustified. By this point in the game, the goal has somewhat become to kill an enemy unit before full rotation, so that way when the turn does rotate back to them, there's less enemies to attack, therefore less damage to take in the entire battle. You don't want healers anymore since wasting a turn to cast a quick heal that restores less HP than an enemy will do in damage is a waste of a turn. Instead, you'd want to land a finishing blow. In addition, Torsu is so weak that he can easily be one-shot just like so many of the other healers. It's just a terrible idea to have him around, period. All healers in this game scale really terribly because they gain less experience points than fighters. While Luke could level up twice in a battle without you noticing, Lo, Chris, Gong, and Torsu probably got less than 50 experience. Torsu's Aura spell gives him a good out to gain rapid levels, but it's still far more grinding to level him up than any other fighter. Well, any fighter other than Adam, that is. Also, since I brought up Adam, he is just as useless at max level as he is normally, because he's too slow to keep pace with the rest of the team and is more so a tank, which is absolutely useless because none of the enemy units target him. Anyways, I don't think anybody should be using Torusu or any of the healers whatsoever, except outside of the first 2 chapters of the game where heal level 1 actually makes a difference and everybody is the same level. As for Pele and Balbroy, I don't think it's a good idea to hold off on promoting Pele, and I think it will actively hurt you to hold off on promoting Balbroy. As far as the other characters, the stat difference is so trivial and doesn't help even that much against important enemies like the Chimera and Blue Dragon. There is, however, 3 characters who may benefit from delayed promotion. Those 3 are Arthur, Henri, and to a lesser extent the other mages, and Kokichi. Arthur has often been the example of weak initially, overpowered later, and there wouldn't be any issue with him except that he's literally useless up until the final 2 chapters of the game where all the grinding and babysitting finally pays off. And even then, it does not pay off very much because a maxed out Arthur still doesn't carry as much as Tower Henri. Our 2 main mages' level 4 spells are absurdly powerful. Their agility too high, and they're often untouchable in and of themselves, which is why Henri's power spike confuses me. It could be that I had her at level 37, and that could have gave her a potential 8 more stats because I just went through the game using her after I got them all to level 20, because she literally carries when maxed out, doing the most damage and having the most range with freeze level 4. Her magic stat grows a lot with the delayed promotions, but by the point in that game where she receives freeze level 4, I rarely ever end up using all of her mana in a single fight, and most of the time it one-shots enemies, so she's literally walking around ready to hand out 6 free kills. I just don't see a point to hold off on promoting her. This argument I will also make of the other mages, except Aleph, because if you want to use her at all, promoting her immediately will make her too slow and squishy. You also have to wait as long as possible in order to make her viable, meaning level 20 is a necessity for Aleph, but for Tao, Henri, not an issue. Arthur, by the point where he's at his strongest, you've shot yourself in the foot more than you've benefited. Kokichi, on the other hand, this guy is overpowered. From the moment he gets the power spear, he begins to carry the team. His flight makes him invulnerable, nullifying his weakness of HP and defense. Well, for ground enemies, that is. Then picking up Valkyrie as soon as he starts to fall off, making him one of the most powerful characters in the game. Holding off on promoting him would be more of a handicap in the mid-game because he makes it so easy, and by the time you get to the end, he can probably face down a flock of chimeras on his own too because he's so evasive. I can only see holding off on promoting Kokichi to be your mid-game detriment because even if you promote him at level 10 and keep using him, he's still overpowered and all around very, very solid. Anyways, you should not hold off on promoting any character unless you're actively seeking a handicap. You should never ever play Arthur unless you're seeking a handicap. Kokichi, Henri, and Tao are viable for holding off on promotion. And lastly, Aleph, you should always wait until level 20 to promote. I'd like to cover one more strategy revolving around the mages before I close out this video. That strategy being usually the moment Tao and Henri are promoted, they move so quickly and their upgraded spells take out entire groups of enemies, meaning they steal a cosmic ton of experience for themselves and slingshot ahead of the team for a short while, nerfing everybody else in chapters 3 and 4, so you might consider holding off from promoting them until chapter 6, but even if you don't, the terrain in chapter 6 makes it so difficult for them to move that it kind of balances itself out. Just something to take note of. Thank you for watching, and let me know in the comments if you'd be interested in watching a no death playthrough. I've done it once before. I died a total of 3 times, once at the 3rd battle, again at the beginning of chapter 2, and the final time against Cain because of his sword's D-Soul ability. Thanks again, and have a lovely day.